Hello, scholars. Here is your core knowledge video for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. Today is Domain 9, Lesson 7. Domain 9, Lesson 7. Our objective today, I can sequence the events in order from first to last in Hansel and Gretel. Let's look at some vocabulary words. Our first word is cackled. And cackled means laughed in a sharp, loud way. The witch cackled when she asked what was for dinner. Our next word is creep. And creep means to move forward slowly and quietly. The cat began to creep towards the bird in the yard. Our next word is heaving. Heaving means with a lot of work or letting out a deep breath. So either a lot of work or letting out a deep breath. I could hear them heaving as they tugged the rope with all their might. Our next word is perched. And perched means rested on a high spot. The cat perched on the fence, watching the squirrels run around the tree. Our next word is wicked. And that means evil or very bad. Simba's wicked Uncle Scar set up a trap for Mufasa. So here are your predictions from last time. We read part 1 yesterday, and these are the predictions from cohort A. You can take a moment to look and see if you see yours if you're cohort A, making sure you're locking it into your brain. And these are the predictions from cohort B and at home scholars. So if you're cohort B or at home, take a minute to look at this and lock your prediction in your brain. I want you to listen carefully to find out whether or not your predictions are correct. Some of you made predictions about candy houses and witches, which tells me you've heard this story before. So if you have and you made a prediction and you know what happens next, listen for how this one is different from the version you already know. It was now the 3rd morning since they had left their father's home. They started along again, always looking for the way home, but instead only got deeper and deeper into the forest. Unless help came soon, they would surely starve. At about noon, they saw a pretty snow-white bird sitting on a branch and singing so beautifully that they stopped to listen. Then the bird spread its wings and flew before them as though to say, "Follow me." And so the children followed until they came to a little house. The bird flew up and perched on the roof of the house. So that means it's sitting up on a high spot. And then the children saw that the walls of the house were made of gingerbread, and the roof was made of cake, and the windows were made of sugar cane. All right, so they've been wandering in the woods for 3 days with no food. I know what I would do if I saw this house made of candy. What would you do? "Let's eat," said Hansel, and he reached up and broke off a piece of candy, while Gretel chewed on a piece of the wall. Suddenly, they heard a thin, screechy woman's voice call from inside the house. "Nibble, nibble like a mouse. Who is nibbling on my house?" The children answered, "It's only the air heaving a sigh. It's only the wind passing by." Hansel and Gretel are trying to convince this woman that she only hears the wind making this sound. So we have a prediction about a candy house that's come true so far. Let's find out who this woman is. The children were so hungry they went on eating. But then the door opened, and a very old woman came out, leaning on a cane. Hansel and Gretel were so frightened that they dropped the food from their hands. But the old woman just nodded her head and said, "My dear little children, what has brought you here? Come inside and stay with me. I will take good care of you." Do we think they should go in this house? I wouldn't want to go in this house. So she took them inside by the hand and let them into her little house. Then they found a wonderful meal of hot pancakes with honey, nuts, apples, and cold milk. After that, the old woman showed them 2 little white beds. Hansel and Gretel lay down and wondered if they were just dreaming. I wonder if they're actually dreaming. Now, the old woman seemed kind, but she, in fact, was a wicked witch. She was a mean, wicked witch. The story goes that she built her house just to trap little children, and once she had them, she would cook them and eat them. Is this an example of fantasy? I think so. There aren't witches who eat children. She could not see well, but she had an excellent sense of smell. Earlier in the day, she'd sniffed Hansel and Gretel coming near. So we have a prediction about a candy house and a witch trying to eat them that seem like they're about to come true. The next morning, before the children were awake, the witch got up and looked at their rosy cheeks. What a fine meal I'll have, she cackled. She got Hansel and Gretel out of bed and put them in a cage. Then she went back and woke up Gretel. Get up, you lazy bones! Ooh, lazy bones, just like their stepmother. Fetch water and cook something nice for your brother. Feed him well, for once he's nice and fat, I will eat him! Gretel screamed and cried, but it was no use. She had to do what the wicked witch said. Day after day, she cooked pots full of rich foods for Hansel, while she herself ate nothing but crumbs. Every morning, the wicked witch would creep to the cage and say, Hansel, stick out your finger so I can tell if you are plump enough to cook. So she would move forward slowly. But clever Hansel held out a little bone that Gretel had given him, and the old woman, who could not see very well, couldn't tell that it wasn't Hansel's finger. She wondered why he wasn't getting plumper. When 4 weeks passed and Hansel seemed as thin as ever, the witch grew impatient. Hurry up and get a pot of water, she snarled. Be he fat or thin, I'm going to cook him and eat him. Oh no, what do we think is going to happen? As she filled the kettle with water and lit the fire, tears rolled down Gretel's cheeks. First we will bake, said the old woman. I have heated the oven and the dough is ready. Then she pushed Gretel toward the oven, where the flames were burning brightly. Stick your head in, the witch said to Gretel, and tell me if it's hot enough for us to bake the bread. But Gretel knew what the witch had in mind. She knew that the witch meant to shut her in the oven and bake her and eat her. So Gretel said, I don't know how to do it. Where do I look? Can you show me how? You silly child, cried the old woman. There's a big opening, don't you see? Why, I could fit it myself. And she stuck her head in the oven. Then Gretel rushed up and, with all her might, pushed the witch into the oven. She shut the iron door and locked it tight. Gretel ran right to Hansel and let him out of the cage. There was a prediction that the witch would get locked in her own microwave. An oven is very similar to a microwave. So, the candy house, the witch trying to eat them, and the witch getting locked in her microwave or oven all came true. Come on, Hansel, we're free, she cried. The old witch is gone. Hansel sprang out and hugged Gretel, and the children danced for joy, then ran out of the house. Then, because they had nothing to fear, they went back into the witch's house. There they found chests full of pearls and precious jewels. These are better than pebbles, laughed Hansel as he filled his pockets while Gretel filled her apron. Now away we go, said Hansel. Then he said quietly, if only we can find our way out of the forest. Ooh, wonder where they're going to go. When they had walked a few hours, they came to a wide lake. There's no bridge and no stepping stones, said Hansel. We can't get across. And there's no boat either, said Gretel. But look, here comes a duck. I'll ask her for help. She called out, Duck, duck, here we stand, Hansel and Gretel on the land. Stepping stones and a bridge we lack. Carry us over on your nice soft back. And lo and behold, the duck came over. Hansel got on her back and told Gretel to sit behind him. Oh, so this sounds like a fantasy event, because I don't really think a duck could carry 2 kids across the lake. When they were on the other side of the lake, they walked on for a little while and soon found a path. The forest began to look more and more familiar. At last, in the distance, they saw their father's house. They began to run as fast as they could. They burst through the door and cried out, Father, Father, we're home! Then they threw themselves into his arms. Ever since he'd left the children in the forest, the man had been worried sick. As for his mean wife, he told the children she was gone. So there's another prediction that they're reunited and that the stepmother is gone. Now he hugged his children as though he would never let them go. As he squeezed Gretel to him, the pearls and jewels from Gretel's apron fell from Gretel's apron. Then Hansel reached into his pocket and pulled out handfuls of treasure. Then they were together again, and their troubles were over, and they lived in perfect happiness for a long time. Or in other words, they all lived happily ever after. So I've added a few things to our fantasy and reality chart. So the candy house and the witch trying to eat the children are 2 fantasy events. Using stones to find your way and a father being happy to be back with his children are reality events. Let's look at sequencing some events from the story. So we have these 6 events, some from the first, some from the second, and I'm going to walk you through the order that they're in. So here we have the wife demanding that the children be left in the woods. That happened first. Here are Hansel and Gretel being left in the woods. That happened second. Here they are using their stones to find their way back. That happened third. Next, we have them taking the candy from the house after they got super lost and couldn't find their way back. That happened fourth. Here the witch is trying to test Hansel's finger to see if she can eat him. That happened fifth. Finally, them being running back home. That happened sixth. So that is exactly your assignment in Google Classroom today. You're going to type the correct number next to each picture, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. If you're confused about the order these events happened in, you can rewind to the part where we sequence the events. And that is the end of your core knowledge video for today, scholars. I'll check in tomorrow to see if your predictions came true, and I will see you next time. Bye!